By mid-1916, the war across the Middle East had swung between crushing defeats and hard-won victories for both sides. The Russians had been largely successful in their endeavours in the Caucasus and Persia, but the same level of success could not be claimed by Britain. While they had repelled an invasion of the Suez Canal, Britain was forced to surrender at Kut after the disastrous Gallipoli withdrawal. Both of these defeats cost many lives and justified 2 official inquiries, prolonging the Great War. Fearing a continuing string of defeats might spur colonial Muslims to rebel against the Entente, the British conceived a bold new strategy to incite an Arab revolt. This video is sponsored by you. Unfortunately, the YouTube environment is not great right now, with the algorithm being friendlier to drama and react channels and YouTube being permissive of AI slop. We don't do drama and we don't do AI, but thanks to our members and patrons, our channel continues to make 3 public videos per week, with the team intact and going strong. In recognition of their generosity and contributions, members and patrons receive 2 additional exclusive videos each week, and access many other perks. Join them to watch more than 250 exclusive videos covering every era of history. Join them by scanning the QR code on your screen, via the links in the description or pinned comment, or by pressing the join button under the video. In February 1916, General Nikolai Yudenich's Caucasus army defeated the Ottoman Third Army and captured Erzurum, opening a corridor deeper into Anatolia. However, operations beyond Erzurum encountered roadless, devastated terrain, after which supply depended on sea transport. Yudenich then committed the Primorsky detachment under Lieutenant General Lyakov, supported by the Batumi detachment. On February 5th, Batumi forces bombarded positions along the Akava River, while Turkestani regiments seized Hopa. The following day, Russian shock troops, aided by warships, attacked the Lazistan detachment, as the Plastun detachment outflanked the Ottomans' right flank, forcing a retreat to Surmene and Riza. Ottoman casualties reached about 500, while the Primorsky detachment suffered roughly 160. By February 29th, Ottoman forces had been pushed back behind the Buyuk-Dere River. Lyakov then led an amphibious assault at Atina, prompting the Ottomans to withdraw. A second amphibious assault at Mapavri followed, and by March 9th, Riza had fallen. The Russians advanced against fortified lines at Karadera while awaiting reinforcements. On March 22nd, the German cruiser Breslau, supported by submarines, attacked the Batumi detachment near Novorossiysk but was driven off. On April 7th, Kuban Plastuns landed at Riza and Hamogian. With more than 32,500 troops, the Primorsky detachment finally breached the Karadera lines on April 18th, forcing the Ottomans to abandon Trabzon without a fight. Both sides prepared offensives, with the Ottomans strengthening their forces. The Third Army was augmented by 2 corps, and the Second Army was deployed to the Caucasus. The Ottoman plan aimed to attack along the Trabzon-Erzurum front with the Third Army, then achieve a decisive breakthrough between the western and eastern Euphrates, aided by forces from Hazut. However, the Second Army's advance was delayed by the Baghdad Railway's limited capacity, and did not arrive until July 21st, about 2.5 months late. During June and July, the Ottoman Third Army conducted an offensive towards Off. On June 22nd, the Russians fought defensively as the Ottomans forged a wedge between the 5th Caucasian and 2nd Turkestan Corps. However, after 10 days of heavy casualties, the Ottomans began to pull south, fearing encirclement. From July 2nd, the Russians launched counterstrokes across several sectors, capturing Mamakatun on July 10th and Bayburt on July 17th. The 2nd Turkestan Corps executed a wide maneuver against the Ottomans' left wing and rear, compelling the loss of Erzincan. By July 23rd to 25th, Kelkit and Erzincan fell as the Russians suffered 12,000 casualties, while the Ottomans suffered about 17,000 casualties, with a comparable number taken prisoner. Following these defeats, on March 15th, Lieutenant General Mustafa Kemal became the commander of the 16th Corps of the Ottoman Second Army, composed of Gallipoli veterans. On April 5th, the Ottoman Second Army launched its late offensive against a mixed force of Russians and Armenian and Assyrian volunteers defending the Mush-Bitlis front, led by Generals Tufmaz Nazarbekian, Andranik Kazanian and Aga Petros. The Ottoman left flank, including the 2nd Ottoman Corps, sought to outflank the 1st Caucasus Corps' left wing, while the remaining 3 Ottoman corps pressed against the 4th Caucasus Corps. The Russians were overwhelmed, as the Ottomans recaptured Bitlis on August 5th and Mush on August 6th, reopening the route to Erzurum. In response, Yudenich formed 2 detachments under Generals Dubisky and Nikolaev to attack the Mush-Bitlis sector and the Kigi area. The counteroffensive began on August 6th, with rapid strikes along the front and into the enemy's flank. Russian forces halted and then repelled the 3rd and 4th Ottoman Corps that had breached the Mush-Bitlis sector. Simultaneously, the 4th Caucasian Corps delivered a frontal thrust, and the right flank of the 16th Ottoman Corps under Mustafa Kemal Pasha was driven back. The 7th Turkish Division of the 16th Ottoman Corps was dispersed at Mush, with approximately 2,200 enemy troops captured. By August 10th, the Russians had recaptured Mush, and by August 14th, Russian forces held the Euphrates Line. In mid-August, Ahmed Izzet Pasha committed the 3rd, 4th and 16th Ottoman Corps to renewed offensive actions. Across the Mush-Bitlis sector, the Caucasian 4th and 5th Divisions faced 11 Ottoman divisions. Despite numerical inferiority, the Russians repelled the attack, as both sides returned to their pre-crisis positions. On August 30th, the Ottomans launched an unexpected thrust south of Kalkit, breaching the Russian front, only for the bulge to be eliminated the following day. Meanwhile, Russian forces on the right flank pressed towards Gumush Khan, where the 5th Caucasian Corps captured Ela. By mid-September, the front stretched from Ela to Kilkata-Zinjan along Heavy Kigimus north of Bitlis, south of Lake Van and the Ranga region. Winter halted major operations by October. The late 1916 offensives left the Russians with 20,000 casualties and the Ottomans with up to 60,000. In the early half of 1916, Ottoman forces under Colonel Kress von Kressenstein raided British positions at Katia, Dueda and Ogratina in preparation for an offensive to capture Romani, where heavy artillery could bombard Canal shipping. By July, German, Austrian, Ottoman forces in Sinai totaled about 16,000 men, with 56 machine guns, 5 anti-aircraft sections, 4 heavy artillery and mountain gun batteries, 5,000 camels, 1,750 horses, and support from the 300th Flight Detachment. Von Kressenstein planned to shell Romani with heavy artillery, while light infantry engaged the redoubts, and the main force would envelop Romani from the right and rear. General Sir Archibald Murray's Egyptian Expeditionary Force defending Romani comprised 14,000 troops of the Anzac Mounted Division and the 52nd Lowland Division, supported by 10,000 camels of the Egyptian Camel Transport Corps, monitors of Mahmudiyya, an armoured train at Kantara, and aircraft stationed at Ismailia, Kantara, Port Said and Romani. Murray's plan aimed to delay the attackers south of Khatib Ganit and disrupt their flank when engaged, relying on section troops at Hill 70 and Dueda, with broader pressure from the 3rd Light Horse Brigade and the Mobile Column. At 100 on August 3rd, 3 invading columns, about 8,000 strong, struck the Romani outpost line held by the 1st Light Horse Brigade. By 200, the attackers pressed within 50 yards of the Australian line, as their centre and left skirted trenches and pressed toward the camp and railway. At 2:30, they bayoneted Mount Meredith, dislodging defenders by 300 to a second position along Wellington Ridge. Fighting extended to Khatib Ganit and beyond, as the attackers pressed along the right flank. The light horse endured heavy casualties, while the rearguard bore intense shell and machine gun fire. By 4:30, the 2nd Light Horse Brigade attacked in front of Mount Royston to support the 1st Light Horse Brigade's right flank. The attackers dislodged defenders on Wellington Ridge, but could not secure the position against fire from the 52nd Lowland Division. At 5:15, the Ottoman 31st Regiment pushed forward as the 32nd and 39th Regiments swung left into the British rear. From 600 to 800, the defenders were pushed back between Wellington Ridge and Mount Royston as attackers atop the ridge fired into the camp a few hundred yards away. At 800, assaults against redoubts 4 and 5 collapsed when the Ottoman 31st Regiment neared within 150 yards. By 1100, 3 columns were halted by concentrated fire from Royal Horse artillery batteries and light horse rifle and machine gun fire. Reinforcements, the New Zealand Mounted Rifles, the 5th Mounted Brigade, and elements of the 42nd Division arrived to bolster the line. At 1400, they executed a counterattack from the west toward Mount Royston, supported by infantry from the 127th Manchester Brigade. By 1600, they had secured high ground on Mount Royston. By 1800, attackers on the southern spur were collapsing, with about 500 prisoners and considerable materiel falling into Entente hands. At 1705, the 156th Scottish Rifles Brigade attacked Wellington Ridge in coordination with the Mount Royston counterattack. By 1900, they were checked 100 yards from the crest by heavy rifle fire. Nightfall ended the fighting as both sides dug in. Within 24 hours, the British concentrated 50,000 men in the Romani area. A general advance by the Anzac Mounted Division began at 400 on August 5th against invading forces spread thin from Hill 110 to Bir en Nus. Bayonets battered Wellington Ridge, breaking the front lines. After clearing Wellington Ridge, they pressed ridge by ridge, sweeping down 1,500 Ottoman troops until a white flag was raised at 500. By 6:30, over 1,619 prisoners had been taken. Concurrently, troops of the 42nd and 52nd Divisions joined the mounted brigades against the enemy rearguard at Katia. At 14:30, a general mounted assault began. The attackers dismounted near the rearguard line and bayoneted the defenders. The rearguard abandoned Katia with 425 captured. Darkness fell, and the battle effectively ended with the invading force retreating to Ogrotina. The two-day Romani engagement inflicted about 1,200 casualties on the invading force and left about 4,000 prisoners. On August 6th, the New Zealand Mounted Rifles and the 5th Mounted Brigades attempted to turn the flank at Ogrotina as the 3rd Light Horse attacked Badia. These efforts gained little. On August 7th, 3 brigades attacked Ogrotina throughout the day, forcing the invaders to retreat to Bir el Abd overnight. Seeing stores afire, on August 9th, Chauvel ordered the Anzac Mounted Division and the 5th Mounted Brigade to assault Bir el Abd. At 500, the New Zealanders seized high ground above Bir el Abd. An hour later, the attackers mounted a counterattack from trenches. Despite supporting fire from artillery and machine guns, the invaders continued to press the Anzac flanks. By 700, they sought to exploit a gap between the New Zealanders and the 2nd Light Horse Brigade, but the 5th Mounted Brigade intervened to close the breach. By midday, counterattacks, supported by reinforcements from El Arish, halted the advance. 2 columns of 5,000 and 6,000 invading troops extended the Anzac flanks, and by 1730, Chauvel ordered a general retirement. The Anzac Mounted Division suffered about 300 casualties. With their line overextended and the mounted advance delivering diminishing returns, pursuit ended. The British suffered about 1,202 casualties, while invading forces sustained about 9,000 casualties, with roughly 1,250 dead and 4,000 taken prisoner. The Romani engagement halted the Ottoman campaign against the Suez Canal, granting the Entente the initiative. To sustain the advance, the British began constructing a railway and pipeline across the Sinai to El Arish. The Egyptian Labour Corps built the railway at roughly 15 miles per month, and the front moved eastward at a comparable pace. In October, Murray established the Eastern Force under Lieutenant General Charles Doble, and on December 7th, the Desert Column formed under Major General Philip Chetwode. On December 21st, the Anzac Mounted Division entered El Arish, which the Ottomans had evacuated, retreating to Magdhaba. Roughly 1,400 troops garrisoned at Magdhaba, manning 6 redoubts. On December 22nd, 7,000 men, 3 brigades of the Anzac Mounted Division and 3 battalions of the Imperial Camel Brigade, supported by the Royal Flying Corps' 5th Wing, assaulted Magdhaba. At 0630, the No. 5 Wing opened fire on Ottoman positions, revealing machine gun emplacements, trenches, and 5 redoubts protecting the village and nearby water sources. The New Zealand Mounted Rifles Brigade led a northeastern assault on Magdhaba village and the Wadi El Arish, while the Imperial Camel Brigade advanced from the south. At 0845, artillery fire intensified as the force moved within 400 yards of the redoubts. By 0925, an enveloping maneuver began, and by 1200 all brigades were engaged. By 1415, the 10th Light Horse Regiment seized Aulad Ali and moved toward Hill 345 to attack the rear of Redoubt No. 4. At 1455, the Imperial Camel Brigade and the 1st Light Horse Brigade initiated a frontal assault on Redoubt No. 2, as the New Zealand Mounted Rifles Brigade blocked the redoubt's retreat. By 1600, the 1st Light Horse Brigade had captured Redoubt No. 2, and Ottoman garrisons surrendered in small groups. The British suffered 146 casualties. 1,282 Ottoman troops were captured, with 200 escaping after suffering roughly 300 casualties. The Romani victories opened space for a British advance into Palestine. To sustain operations, the British constructed a supply network across the Sinai, including a railway and water pipeline. Following the Ottoman entry into the war, both sides sought the support of the Sharif of Mecca, Hussein bin Ali. The Ottomans pressed for endorsement of a jihad. The British, seeking to undermine Ottoman control, pressed for an Arab uprising. Despite reservations about centralized Ottoman authority in Hejaz, fears of Khalid blockade and his dismissal or even murder, Hussein aimed to establish an independent Arab kingdom. He dispatched his son Abdullah to Cairo to negotiate with the British, resulting in a series of 10 letters exchanged from July 1915 to March 1916 between Hussein and British High Commissioner Sir Henry McMahon. The British pledged recognition of Arab self-determination, while Hussein promised 100,000 troops for a revolt. By 1915, the Sharifian army numbered about 50,000, but possessed only around 10,000 rifles. Though presenting themselves as leaders of a pan-Arab movement, Hussein and his sons could not coordinate revolts in Syria or Iraq. Nevertheless, the British, scarred by defeats at Gallipoli and Kut, were eager to exploit the opportunity. On June 5th, Faisal and Ali Hussein led 1,500 tribal volunteers to attack the Ottoman garrison at Medina under Lieutenant General Fakhri Pasha. After 4 days, Ali submitted an ultimatum to Jamal Pasha, outlining demands for his family's continued loyalty. Medina then came under siege. In early June, the Meccan garrison moved to Taif to escort Ghalib Pasha, leaving about 1,400 troops to guard Mecca. On June 10th, Sharif Hussein fired the first shot of the Arab revolt from the palace window, and within days, around 5,000 Arabs pressed the fortresses overlooking Mecca and the Jirwal barracks. By June 12th to 13th, the Ottoman government office was seized, along with the deputy governor, who subsequently refused Ottoman surrender. One hilltop fortress held out for over 4 weeks, bombarding Mecca. Shells hit the great mosque canopy over the Kaaba. A stalemate followed, prompting Sir Reginald Wingate to dispatch 2 artillery pieces from Sudan via Jeddah, supported by Egyptian gunners. The Ottoman fort walls were breached, and the Sharifian army launched an assault that sealed the defenders' fate. By July 4, 1916, the last Ottoman resistance in Mecca, the Jirwal barracks, capitulated. Meanwhile, on June 10th, 4,000 Bedouin horsemen of the Harb tribe, led by Sharif Musin, attacked the Red Sea port of Jeddah. The Ottoman garrison, about 1,500, initially repelled the assault, but with Royal Navy warships, aircraft and Arab support, the Ottomans were compelled to surrender by June 16th. Simultaneously, Abdullah Hussein led about 7,000 Bedouin against Taif, defended by 1,200 Ottoman troops under Ahmed Tevfik Pasha. Bedouin forces, though equipped mainly with rifles, were unable to match Ottoman artillery and machine guns. After several weeks of stalemate, British sent Egyptian artillery helped Taif fall in mid-July. The Ottomans held out until September 21st. By the end of September, Hussein and his sons had captured Mecca, Taif, Jeddah, Rabigh, Al-Kafunda and Yanbu, taking about 6,000 Ottoman troops prisoner with relatively light casualties on both sides. However, roughly 15,000 Ottoman troops remained in Hejaz, and Bedouin volunteers began returning home with loot. Fakhri Pasha prepared a counteroffensive. On August 1st, the Young Turks sent Sharif Ali Haidar to replace Hussein. Fakhri Pasha intended to escort him by attacking from Medina to Mecca. British planners in London, Cairo and Simla considered reinforcing Hussein, but worried that troops would be seen as desecrating the sacred soil of Hejaz. Instead, Britain sent about 700 Arab Ottoman POWs to join the revolt, alongside Muslim soldiers from French North Africa. Britain and France also deployed officials to assist Hussein. On October 16th, Captain T.E. Lawrence arrived in Hejaz, travelled to Rabigh to meet Hussein's sons, and advised Faisal to lead the revolt. By November, Lawrence joined Faisal's staff and urged coordination with Ali to attack the Hejaz railway, rather than simply drive the Ottomans from Medina. He also urged Britain to supply gold, weapons, ammunition and specialists to empower the Arabs to fight their war. On December 1st, Fakhri led 3 brigades from Medina against Yanbu. En route, Fakhri's forces faced Sharifian resistance. Within days, Fakhri controlled all routes into and out of Yanbu as 4,000 Arab troops constructed earthworks to slow the Ottoman advance. Few believed the Arabs could hold the city. Lawrence secured aid from the Royal Navy, which bombarded Ottoman positions and launched aircraft. By December 11th, the Ottomans reached Yanbu's outskirts, but were spent, and despite a string of Ottoman victories, illness, malnutrition, and ongoing bombardment compelled Fakhri to shift his attack toward Rabiq. Guerrilla and air attacks on Ottoman flanks and lines of communication forced a retreat to Medina by January 18, 1917. Despite Britain's devastating losses at Gallipoli and Kut, the Arab revolt in Hejaz and the successful defense of Romani had breathed new life into their war effort against the Ottomans. More confident, the British would prepare another offensive to seize Baghdad. Meanwhile, the Russian Empire continued to dominate the Ottomans across the Caucasus front, further threatening Inner Anatolia. The only thing that could stop the Russians would be an internal crisis. Despite Britain's devastating losses at Gallipoli and Kut, the Arab revolt in Hejaz and the tenacious defense of Romani breathed new life into the war effort against the Ottomans. In the next episode, we will discuss the armistice of Erzincan and the fall of Baghdad, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our patrons and YouTube members can watch more than 200 exclusive videos. Join their ranks via the link in the description or by pressing the join button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.